My name is Scarlett. I live in Paris. I am 25 years old. Today, I want to tell you about a life-changing day I had in London. It was a day filled with joy, love, and heartbreak. It all started on a bright morning in London. I had planned this trip for months. I wanted to see the famous sights and experience the energy of the city. As I stepped off the train at King's Cross Station, I felt a rush of excitement. The air was cool and the sun was shining. Little did I know, this day would change my life forever. Walking through the station, I took in the hustle and bustle around me. People rushed by, some talking on their phones, others reading newspapers. I pulled out my map and tried to figure out where to go first. My heart raced as I thought about all the adventures waiting for me. My first stop was the British Museum. I had always wanted to see the Rosetta Stone and the Egyptian mummies. As I wandered through the halls, I marveled at the halls. Everything felt magical. While admiring a beautiful Egyptian statue, I bumped into a tall, handsome stranger. "Sorry about that," he said, flashing a charming smile. "I didn't see you there. It's okay." "I was lost in thought," I replied, feeling a blush creep onto my cheeks. "My name is James," he introduced himself. "Are you visiting London?" "Yes, it's my first time here," I said, my heart racing a little. "Would you like some company? I can show you around," James offered. I hesitated but then nodded. "I'd love that." As we explored the museum together, we talked about everything. Our favorite books, music, and dreams. James was funny and kind, and I felt a connection growing between us. We spent hours wandering through the museum, laughing and sharing stories. After leaving the museum, we decided to grab lunch at a cozy cafe nearby. Over sandwiches and tea, I learned that James was a local photographer. He showed me some of his work on his phone, and I was amazed by his talent. "You have a great eye for detail," I complimented him. "Thank you. I love capturing moments," he replied, his eyes sparkling. As we ate, I noticed how easy it was to talk to him. It felt like we had known each other for a long time. I shared stories about my life in Paris, my family, and my dreams. James listened intently, nodding and asking questions. I felt comfortable with him, like I could be myself. After lunch, we decided to visit Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament. As we walked, I admired the beautiful architecture and the vibrant, beautiful atmosphere of the city. The streets were alive with tourists and locals alike. I felt a sense of adventure bubbling inside me. "Look at that!" James pointed to a street performer playing the guitar. "Let's stop and listen." We stood for a while, enjoying the music. I watched as people danced and clapped along. The energy was infectious. I turned to James and smiled. "This is amazing. I love the vibe here. London has a unique spirit," he said. "There's always something happening." After the performance, we continued our journey to Buckingham Palace. I was excited to see the famous guards in their tall hats. When we arrived, there were many tourists taking pictures. We found a good spot to watch. "Do they ever move?" I asked, curious. James laughed. "Only during the changing of the guard ceremony. It's quite a show." As we waited, I felt a flutter in my heart. Being with James made me feel alive. We chatted about our lives, and I found myself opening up to him in a way I hadn't with anyone else. When the guards finally changed, it was a spectacle. The music played, and the guards marched in perfect formation. I clapped along with the crowd, feeling a sense of joy wash over me. After enjoying the palace, we walked through St. James's Park. The park was beautiful, with flowers blooming and ducks swimming in the pond. I took a moment to sit on a bench and soak it all in. "This is so peaceful," I said, smiling at James. "London has many parks like this. It's nice to escape the busy streets," James replied, sitting beside me. We talked about our favorite places in the world. James shared his dream of traveling to Japan to capture the cherry blossoms. I told him about my love for Paris and how it felt like home. As the sun began to set, we decided to visit the Tower of London. I was eager to learn about its history and see the crown jewels. The tower loomed large and mysterious, and I felt a thrill of excitement as we entered. Inside, we explored the exhibits, learning about the tower's dark past. I was fascinated by the stories of kings and queens. When we reached the crown jewels, I gasped at the sight of the sparkling crowns and scepters. They are so shiny. I can't believe they belong to the queen, I exclaimed. James nodded, equally impressed. They are very valuable and beautiful. After exploring the tower, we felt hungry. Let's grab some dinner, James suggested. We found a small pub nearby and ordered fish and chips. As we waited for our food, I felt a warmth in my heart, grateful for this day. While we ate, I learned more about James. He told me about his family, his childhood in London and his childhood in London, and his passion for photography. I shared stories about my father, Rock, and how he had encouraged me to travel and explore the world. I wish I could have met him, James said, looking sincere. He sounds like a wonderful person. He is, I replied, feeling a mix of pride and sadness. He always believed in me. After dinner, we decided to visit the London Eye, a giant Ferris wheel that offered stunning views of the city. As we stood in line, I felt butterflies in my stomach. I was excited but also nervous. When it was our turn, we stepped into a pod. As the wheel began to rise, I gasped at the breathtaking view. The city stretched out below us, twinkling with lights as the sun set. Look at that view, I shouted, pointing at the skyline. It's breathtaking! James smiled, his eyes sparkling with excitement. It's one of the best views in the city. As we reached the top, I felt a rush of emotions. I was happy, alive, and connected to this wonderful person beside me. I glanced at James and James saw him looking at me. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world around us faded away. Scarlett, he said softly, I'm really glad we met today. Me too, I replied, my heart racing. This has been an incredible day, but just has been Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, and my heart sank. It was a message from my mother. I opened it, and my hands trembled as I read the words. Scarlett, I have terrible news. Your father has passed away. The world around me blurred as I processed the message. I felt a wave of shock and grief wash over me. I looked at James, tears streaming down my face. My dad, he is gone, I managed to say, my voice breaking. I have to go home. James immediately took my hand, his expression filled with concern. I'm so sorry, Scarlett. Is there anything I can do? I shook my head, feeling lost. I need to leave London. I can't believe this is happening. We stepped off the London Eye, and I felt like I was in a daze. The joy of the day had turned into a heavy sadness. As we walked back to the heavy sadness train station in silence, my heart felt like it was breaking. I knew I had to leave, but I didn't want to say goodbye to James. At the station, I turned to him, my heart aching. Most, I said, my voice trembling. I wish I could do more, he replied, looking into my eyes. You're not alone, Scarlett. I'll be here if you need me. I nodded, but deep down, I knew I had to go. I stepped onto the train, my heart heavy with sorrow. As the train pulled away, I saw James standing on the platform, waving goodbye. I felt a piece of my heart stay with him. Arriving back in Paris, everything felt different. The streets that once felt familiar now seemed empty. I had come back with half of my soul missing. My father's death left a void that felt impossible to fill. Days turned into weeks, and I tried to adjust to life without my father. I often thought of James and the beautiful day we shared. I wished I could tell him how much that day meant to me. One evening, as I sat by the Seine River, I pulled out my phone and looked at the pictures from my day in London. I smiled at the memories but felt a pang of sadness. Decided to send James a message. Hi, James. It's Scarlett. I'm back in Paris. I wanted to thank you for that incredible day in London. It meant a lot to me. To my surprise, he replied almost immediately, Scarlett, I'm so glad to hear from you. I've been thinking about you. I'm sorry about your father. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. His words brought a small comfort to my heart. We started messaging more often, sharing our lives, despite the distance. James encouraged me to find joy again, reminding me of the beauty in the world. Eventually, I decided to visit London again. I wanted to honor my father's memory and the connection I had with James. When I arrived, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I texted James as soon as I got to my hotel. He replied, when we met, it felt like no time had passed. We walked through the city, sharing stories and laughter. I realized that even though I had lost my father, life still held moments of beauty and joy. As the sun set over the beauty and joy, as the sun set over the Thames, I felt hope stirring in my heart. I knew that I would carry my father's memory with me, but I also had the chance to embrace new beginnings. With James by my side, I felt ready to move forward, one step at a time. We visited the same places we had been to before, the British Museum, Buckingham Palace, and the Tower of London. Each location held memories of our first day together.